Right. Looks like we're live on YouTube on my end.
Yep. All right. And then let's hit the record.
Mhm.
There we go.
Awesome. Here we are.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So,
Tell us what we're going to be talking about
yes.
today.
So, we are talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. I feel like this has come up in just about all of our lives so far. So it was a great chance to sort of dedicate a whole live to this topic because it's certainly been showing up in different ways each week. So, so we wanted to spend some time this morning diving into that topic a little bit more. So we kind of wanted to start with our view on really what stories are. And Kelly and I kind of both had a little bit of a different perspective, but they totally both fit together. I think we just kind of each thought of one side of it. And the first thing that came to mind for me was kind of like the elaborate explanation that we create surrounding a limiting belief, or really any block. So with our coach hats on, we have a few different blocks. We talk about limiting beliefs, which are basically just any belief that you have that limits you. We refer to assumptions a lot, and that's the idea that maybe because something happened before, it could happen again. Like, I tried to get a new job 6 months ago and it didn't work out. So, that's kind of what would happen again. And another big one is perspectives. That is, and we went into this at length in our last couple lives, just about, how we perceive something is very different than another person in that situation might perceive it, and vice versa, and how that ultimately can limit us in a situation. So I like to look at stories as those kind of like elaborate explanations that we create around those blocks that sort of validate it, actually.
Mhm.
So
or try to.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit too. And we have some kind of ideas on how to combat it, so to speak, if it is trying. But I like to think of, stories as an explanation around those beliefs and a way to attempt to validate that belief for you. And so those stories can get pretty big and pretty elaborate, right? In trying to hang on to that belief. I'm trying to think of an example of like a personal example offhand. And I'm sure one will come to me. Do you think of any, Kelly?
I can, So, so one of the things that I think those stories do is allow us to hide from vulnerability and hide and play small.
Yeah, for sure.
So yesterday evening, there's a lake about 40 miles from my house. And a friend and I were going to go out and watch the sunset. And so we went out and I had no idea where we were going. I hadn't been out there before in the evening, or, just on that side of the lake where we were going. I had been in the park, but I knew that wasn't where I wanted to go. So we pulled into this boat launch area and kind of drove around in it. And there's, in the middle of the road, are these huge rocks that they put, boulders. They weren't just rocks, they were boulders. They were massive boulders that they put to stop traffic, stop people from driving back there. And so we actually ended up sitting on one of the rocks, and I was looking at this line. There were maybe 10 of these huge rocks. And I thought, because I was thinking about our time this morning, how easy it would be, even for a grown woman. These rocks were big enough that if I had wanted to hide from somebody, I could have scratched down and made myself small behind one of these rocks. And I think that's what we do with our stories, is they make a nice place for us to hide behind when we don't want to come out and play full out and be vulnerable. We run and hide behind something, behind a story. And in that moment, that story serves us to provide safety, to provide a sense of protection from vulnerability.
Yeah.
But they don't, staying in that space of safety from vulnerability doesn't, I mean, there can be a moment, there can be a time for that to be really powerful.
Of course.
But to grow, the way out is through. We know that. The way out is through. So without facing that vulnerability and facing that fear and facing that whatever it is that you're making up a story to hide behind.
Yeah.
They can keep us from growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you mentioned I like how you mentioned that, that it does serve a purpose, even though we know the way out is through, and we're going to have to step away or from out behind that rock eventually. What advice would you give somebody sort of struggling in that moment where they're like feeling in that safety zone? They're comfortable there. They know they've got to step out at some point, but they're not feeling ready. What does that look like, that transition?
Well, I like what Brene Brown says around this when she talks about shame cannot exist when empathy is present. So I think that a lot of the times that we create those stories, it's our shame is tangled up in it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the point because I feel ashamed. So I keep telling this story, and I go around and around and around and around and chase that rabbit all over the place, because I fear when I say the truth, I fear rejection. I fear shame. I fear being belittled. So I keep telling the story to avoid those things. If I can find a way to give myself that empathy,
Yeah.
if I can find a way to, and it's hard for me to do that for myself. And that's the power in coaching, is we as coaches can help our clients move to that place of feeling and seeing empathy for themselves.
Yeah.
And being empowered. You know, the difference between it makes me feel and I feel. When you say it makes me feel, you're giving that power away. You're empowering someone or something outside of you.
Yeah.
We say, I feel shame. I feel scared. I feel fear. I'm owning that. I'm claiming that and acknowledging this is how Kelly's feeling in this moment, and choosing to stand in that and feel the discomfort, because it is uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
You know, but that's the path out from behind the rock.
Yeah. I also, as you were talking, just thought about, and this is also something we've talked about a few times. I also thought about our live regarding confidence and building that muscle. And I think that can totally apply here as well too. Like, you can sort of view, I love how you bring us a metaphor each week, by the way, because it totally just like really, it really helps like take in the concept. But
it is my superpower.
It really is. It really, you're so good at it. But it made me think, like, you know, if you can start to think about stepping out from behind that rock, so to speak, for short periods of time and like really celebrating those wins, like, how did I step outside, like step out from behind my rock today? Like, what did I do? Like, what did I learn? Like, how was I vulnerable? You know, that I think can be really powerful in that transition space as well. Like, really starting to recognize the steps that you're making, and building up that muscle, so to speak, right?
Showing yourself empathy.
Yeah.
Showing yourself that compassion, you know, and then being curious. What is it about the truth that's scary?
Yeah.
What is it about that that's scary? And then that's what we do as coaches, is we kind of poke at that and help, you know, peel that onion back about what is it about this that's terrifying you and keeping you playing small.
Yeah.
You're living in that story and you're not living in your truth.
Yeah. And I think that, I think it comes completely underrated that just having that awareness, like awareness is so, so, so powerful. Like,
It is.
and again, I think that that step or that stage in the process is completely underrated. It's like people are like, I know what I need to do. Like, I know what the problem is or whatever, and kind of shrug it off. But if you can really sit in that awareness stage too,
Right.
I feel like things really start to come together and pave a way forward.
Well, it provides the opportunity for you to make an informed decision.
Mm,
And one of my favorite analogies with that awareness is, and this is just going to sound really bizarre, but go with me for a minute, is toothpaste. Not what you were expecting.
no, it wasn't. But I trust your metaphors because it is your superpower. So I'm in it. I'm listening.
Okay. So when you look at a commercial for toothpaste on TV,
mm-hmm.
and they show squeezing toothpaste out onto the toothbrush,
Mm-hmm.
it's this full, big, huge, round.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah. And so that's what they're selling, because that's a lot of toothpaste. And then you're going to go through it very quickly and buy more.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become aware that toothpaste, not all toothpaste is good for you, and whoever uses that much toothpaste?
Nobody. You don't need that much.
No, exactly. So when you become aware of the details behind it, it changes your behavior, and you don't put that much toothpaste on your toothbrush.
Right.
Because you've become aware that, one, you don't need it, two, it's not good for you, it's wasteful, blah, blah, blah. You go on down the line.
Mm.
And so you start using less based on your awareness, and you're making that choice based on awareness, not based on their marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another great metaphor, Kelly.
I just, that's just like one of those things that I think about. It's like, we're sold this regularly. It's how it's marketed. It's how it's presented. This is how you're supposed to use it. And nobody does that. Well, maybe, a 4-year-old that gets a hold of it and just watched a commercial, but
yeah.
So yeah, awareness changes our behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Awareness changes our, or it can.
It can.
It doesn't, we're at choice.
Exactly.
And that's where I think the stories will either support us or keep us playing small.
Yes.
Is in those choices.
Yeah.
We are at choice.
Yeah. Once we have the awareness, we have the choice.
Yeah.
And then it's, what you do with it from there. Another thing that I thought of, and I feel like we should be the 4 Agreements affiliates because we bring it up almost every live.
I know,
but
right?
If anyone out there has not read that book yet, it is completely life-changing.
Right.
But last week we spoke about the agreement that talks about being impeccable with your word. So, that's really just boils down to speaking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And in that section of the book, they do discuss what the opposite is, like what not speaking truth is. And he refers to it basically as black magic. When you're saying things that are untrue, like these stories that we talked about. And I had an example come up recently, both with my mom and my sister, and I know they won't mind me sharing. But there tends to be this saying that's like completely untrue that the women in my family say. And, I'm sure you've heard it as well, Kelly, and I'm sure a lot of other women that may watch this over the course of time heard it and say it as well. But we tend to say, with my luck, ...
Ooh.
And, we've always just said it like, oh, with my luck, this will happen. And with my luck, that'll happen. Or with my luck, this won't happen, blah, blah, blah. And never thought anything of it. We say it like so easily all the time. And it was a couple of months ago, and sometime in the last year, maybe, that both my mom and my sister said it in like the same week. And I stopped and I was like, to my mom specific, actually, my sister and I had the conversation as well, but I was like, do you really consider yourself an unlucky person? And she was like, no, not really. Like, and we're talking about, I was like, kind of started talking about like things that have like worked in her favor, like things that we're blessed with, grateful for, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are we really like unlucky people? And we're both like, no. Why do we always say with my luck? We don't have bad luck. Like, why do we always throw out that term so easily, like just flows off the tongue? And it just reminded me of this whole like story piece, like we so easily can put ourselves in a position of not speaking truth.
Right.
It's not true that we're unlucky. It's not true that like with my luck, this or that's going to happen, but yet we still say it. And so, in the book, The Four Agreements, it talks about, again, basically anything that you're saying that's untrue about yourself or others,
Right.
as the idea of like casting black magic, basically.
Right.
And I just really thought that that was an interesting correlation with these stories, right? Because we talk about these stories as, being basically false explanations, either around limiting beliefs or to keep us safe, like you were talking about, to keep us in a place of feeling protected or whatever. But they're not true.
Right.
And, there's also the idea that our thoughts create our feelings, which create our actions. And so really, to me, that is the process of black magic, right? Because if our thoughts and the things that we're saying are untrue, they're creating these alternate feelings, probably undesired feelings,
right,
that are creating undesired actions. And that whole process, to me, is like that process of black magic, right? You started off with thinking or saying something completely untrue, and you end up over here either in complete inaction towards what you really want because it's held you back, or doing these actions that are not in line with really where you want your life to go. And all of a sudden it's like you almost just like cast a spell on yourself and are in this totally different land.
right. Yeah, you've created the undesirable outcome that you didn't want.
Right.
Like energy attracts like energy,
Mm.
so what, when I am, easy, as you know, I just went through a divorce and moved to Tennessee. And it was an opportunity. No one down here knew me. I had no reason to come here. People say, what brought you to Tennessee? And I'll say a U-Haul. Because it's kind of, it was almost throwing a dart at a map, not quite, but I knew I had to develop a new friend group, a new support system. And I remember sitting in my house one day thinking, who do I want in my life? What kinds of people do I want in my life? And I made a list of the types of people that I want in my life. I want people that are happy, that are caring, that are supportive. Stable was a big one. Who are self-aware. So I just make this list of, this is who I want in my life. And I didn't do anything overtly to go find those people. I just started showing up. That's like, if I'm going to talk to myself, I might as well talk to myself in a way that's going to, like when I was running, and I'm tired and I want to stop. My whole body hurts. No, you're almost there. You can do this. It's just another mile. You can do this. So as I'm getting ready to go through my day, walking out the door, okay, Kelly, how are you feeling right now? Maybe I don't feel great. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I didn't sleep good last night. Maybe I feel great. Maybe I feel really happy. But what do I want to put out there today? How do I want to show up? What do I want to attract back to me? And I can choose. I have that power and ability to say, I feel tired, but I'm going to go through the day today smiling, and I'm going to ask each person that I encounter, if they're not wearing a name tag, if we're not at a store, or I can see their name, I'm going to ask them their name. And I'm going to tell them, have a beautiful day today. Everybody says, have a good day. That's just, like, I'm going to say, have a beautiful day today. And doing that puts out the energy of appreciation, of acknowledging. And then that's what comes back. And I've been in Tennessee exactly a year.
Yay.
And I have the best friends here. I mean, the people that I have become close with have shown up and helped me and supported me in just so many ways. And I'm just so grateful. And I just really stay in that space of gratitude for my friends.
Yeah.
And and then that's what comes back. So we have that choice. When we have that awareness, we can choose how we're going to talk to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much because it totally like ties into like the last like important point that I wanted to make. Our Kelly, our mentor, Bridget, had said on a call with us, I think it was last week or the week before, if you're going to make up stories, at least make up stories that uplift you.
Yes.
And in that moment a year ago, Kelly, when you moved to Tennessee, not knowing anyone, and you sat down and really created an awareness around who you wanted to surround yourself with and the life you wanted to build in Tennessee, you created a story that uplifted you.
Right.
You said, I'm Kelly, and I'm surrounded by people who support me and, you know, A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z. And you made the choice and you created a story that uplifted you, which one is so amazing because honestly, it's not easy to do. You know, you easily could have, you know, sunk down in, you know, I'm in this new state and I just got divorced. And, you know, you could have went down that rabbit hole of, you know, of more of the stories that we talked about in the beginning of our conversation, but you didn't. You made a choice.
Stayed hidden behind that rock.
No, yeah, you made up a story that brought you from outside or from out from behind that rock. And it's a true testament to how that works, because here you are a year later and you just painted a picture for us of how grateful you are and how you truly did surround yourself with those exact type of people from your story. And, you know, it's just, I guess for me, it's a little bit of proof for anyone out there watching who might not understand how this all works, or might be scared to try, or might be scared to let go of those stories that aren't serving them any longer, to just have that example and to hear your story, Kelly, to say, hey, I can do that too, because really anybody can do that. You just have to make the choice, like you said. But it's some proof out there for people to see that it does work and you can do it too.
You know, we have a lot more agency than we realize.
For sure.
You know, we have a lot more agency. And that's a word I've done a lot of work around this last year, is my agency, being a trauma survivor, and working through that trauma. And you know, the other part, when I'm working with someone and they're telling themselves stories, I think another really valuable piece in that story is to get curious about what is the value that you're assigning to the different pieces in this story.
That's a great point too.
Because nothing has value until we assign it value. You know, so getting curious around what is the value that you're assigning to this, and what's the belief behind it. You know, have you been shamed? You know, one of the things you may not have been told when you were a child, because you're a little bit younger than I am, but when I was in school, you know, we used to get our textbooks and we had to turn them back in at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We could not write in our textbooks. I was like, if we were caught writing in our textbooks, there was a lot of shame
Oh, for sure.
around it. You don't do that. And, you know, we don't today, I buy a book, and if you look at any of the books that I've read on my bookshelf, they're highly marked up,
Oh,
highlighted,
mine too.
notes.
Yes.
And, you know, we have to come to that awareness, that choice. I can write in this book. It's okay. It's my book. I paid for it. Nobody's going to take it away from me.
Yeah.
So it's a choosing of how we're going to show up. And those sometimes the stories we tell ourselves, but other times there's stories that we've hung on to. What if I was told as a child, you don't write in books? And I hung on to that, and I kept that into my adulthood, and I didn't write in any of my books because I was told you don't do that. And there's shame around writing in books, so I don't write in my books.
Yeah.
And then that opens the door for me to judge you when I come to your house and I see you writing in a book, because you didn't have that story told to you by somebody.
Right.
So then I can judge you for Jessica's writing in her books, which is just a, innocuous example, but those things happen in our lives every day.
Yeah.
We keep these stories going, and then we use them not only to beat up ourselves, but they damage our relationships with other people when we judge other people around that.
No, it's a great example. And, even though it might be sort of a small example, it's very realistic and a great way to show that, like, if something that small could impact relationships and impact the way you learn and grow. Like I do write in my books, and so as you're telling this story, I'm like, I feel like I would have missed out on great learning opportunities if I didn't highlight something or make some notes or whatever. And so it has a really big impact. And if you think about it on that small of a level, I mean, imagine the things that are impacting us on a much greater level.
Right. Yeah. So how many times have you been coaching or talking with a friend or talking with your daughter, and something that you read in a book that you highlighted or underlined or circled and made a little note comes to your mind, and you run and grab that book, and
oh my gosh,
find that spot because you know what it looks like, right? You know what that looks like because you highlighted it, and it mentally up here, exactly what that looks like and where that is, and you can find it like that.
Yeah, it happens all the time, honestly. All the time. All the time.
So I feel like this has just flown by, and we're way long and over time today.
I know, but I'm sure it'll come. I'm sure this topic will come up again. I feel like all of ours tend to make an appearance in our other lives. So I'm sure this is something that'll come up again, and we'll expand on, or we'll relate to other topics that we're talking about. But I definitely wanted to sort of, again, leave with that idea that our mentor, Bridget, had said to us about, really just drawing drawing an awareness to the stories that you are creating about yourself and others. And like you said, bringing some curiosity into it, where that comes from, how it is and isn't serving you. And maybe, you know, maybe start on a small level, but try to maybe reframe those stories in a way that serves you better or uplifts you, as Bridget said.
Right. And sometimes it can just be honoring and saying, thank you, you've gotten me this far, but this isn't working for me anymore. And
Yeah.
so now I'm going to put you in a little box, and I'm going to put you over here, and I'm going to appreciate everything you've done to help me get here so far. But today's a new day.
It reminds me of it's not you, it's me, but we're breaking up.
Right. Yeah.
But we have that. We truly do have that power. Sometimes it takes a little time to get to that point, to build that confidence muscle, but we have that power to, honor it for what it did for us and say, yeah, but we're breaking up now.
We're breaking up now. That really is the process that we as coaches support our clients in walking through.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Helping them, because sometimes it's like walking blindfolds through a forest. By themselves, they get lost. And another thing Bridget said, and I loved this was so empowering. We don't have to have it all figured out. And we don't. I don't. Maybe you do. No. I don't.
I do not.
But all we have to do is be one or two steps ahead. And when she said that, I was thinking about a 20-mile hike that I went on with my son when he was in Boy Scouts. And the youngest scout on the hike was in front. My son was just out there. And he kept turning around and looking back. And he'd walk back and he'd go, "You guys all right?"
Yeah.
Because he knew if he went around the corner and got too far ahead of us, he was the one with the map. He knew where we were going.
Yeah.
And he didn't want everybody to get lost, but we were walking slower than he wanted to walk.
Yeah.
And that's how, it's that gentle, empathic compassion of just loving someone through that process of finding their way so they don't run into the trees.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, maybe we can kind of end with this, but the last few weeks we've been talking all about perspective, and today we talked all about stories we create about ourselves. But like you just kind of tied it all together, everyone's got stories that they're telling ourselves. So showing empathy and compassion for others as they're working through their stories as well.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us a preview of what we're going to talk about next week? Do you have that handy?
Oh, shoot. I don't even have that in front of me. Actually, I do. I've got the whole list here. Next week. Next week we're talking about self-care and letting go of guilt around that. The whole idea that self-care, against popular belief, is not selfish.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, you have a beautiful day.
You as well.
And I'm going to end our YouTube live